Speaking of the Michigan Wolverines, including a very, very big recruiting pickup in quarterback Jadyn Davis. And they had their spring game over the weekend. Let's do Davis first. So, Bud, when we look at the quarterback class for the 2024 cycle, we have even said on the show that it's Dylan Raiola, and then we got a little bit of a drop. Where is Davis among that next group up? And do you see like any more upward momentum in terms of the way he's rated, ranked, or projected?
So it's always possible to move up. It's also possible to move down, right? Like he's one of those guys right now. He's rated the 28th player in the country for us on 24/7 Sports and the number 2 quarterback. I do think it's Raiola, and then a level drop to Dave, probably like Davis leading the top of that tier 2 group. It's still a really good get, right? And this is a player that I think Jim Harbaugh in Michigan had to go out and get, right? You know, he's not a super tall guy, 6'1.5". 200 pounds, looks like, you know, frame wise, he's probably not getting a whole lot bigger unless he gets an unexpected growth spurt. But he's kind of a tactician, a guy who's real accurate, seems to know where to go with the football, very productive at the high school level. I would say the arm is a good arm, not like not a Josh Allen, Nico type arm, but a really strong, or a strong enough arm that you can make all the throws you need to make at the college level. And I say that they had to go out and get a guy like Jadyn Davis because they missed on quarterback in last year's cycle. And I think there was some early panic, perhaps, in the Michigan fan base that they didn't get CJ Carr, right? Like, guys, like it's Lloyd Carr's grandson. How are we not getting in on this guy? But Jadyn Davis is the dude that I think Michigan had at the top of their board for most of this cycle and last year's cycle. So I think it's a really good get for them. Harbaugh actually has a pretty dang good track record with developing quarterbacks. McCarthy is not an elite quarterback yet, but he's at least solid. Obviously, Andrew Luck was, somebody he recruited. And if you're Michigan, you need to be feeling much better about your recruiting now than I think you should have been feeling over the last 2 years. And we kind of ragged on them a little bit, and I don't think we should back down from that, right? They had gone off back-to-back college ball playoff appearances, back-to-back, beating Ohio State, including last year in the Horseshoe, and they did not capitalize on the recruiting trail like they should have, right? Classes in the teens, when you are freaking Michigan, is not good enough based on 2 back-to-back college ball playoff titles and ending the drought against Ohio State. Now we're starting to see that. They're number 3rd in the country, and it's because of quality, not just quantity. And I'm looking forward to seeing how high they can rise this year.
And also, they're starting to actually have success recruiting in Ohio, which is something that they haven't been able to do at all because of Ohio State. So that is kind of an interesting situation. It also kind of goes to what I was talking about at the end of the season when Ohio State lost to Michigan. He's not on the hot seat, but there are signs that the seat is warming up and could get hot, Ryan Day. But going back to Michigan and Jadyn Davis, like I think it's a huge thing for Michigan to get a 5-star highly rated QB, as you said, just for the vibes off the way the fan base was feeling and the way recruiting was going. I think it's another good sign. I will say, though, I am surprised that this was Michigan's choice. Like, I haven't seen Jadyn Davis play, so I can't speak to that. But just looking at his build, because if you look at the quarterbacks, like you mentioned, that Harbaugh has had in his career at Stanford and into Michigan, like J.J. McCarthy is 6'3", 225? And like Cade McNamara was like 6'3". You look at the dudes he had, like, what's the kid who transferred from Iowa when he first came there?
Jake Rudock.
Jake Rudock. These are all like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" kids. Like Jadyn Davis, you said he's not the biggest kid. He's only about 6 feet tall, 202 pounds. So like he doesn't really fit the prototypical old school quarterback mold that Harbaugh tends to have preferred. So I wonder if we are seeing maybe a possible change in the philosophy of what they're going to be trying to do offensively.
I think this is one of the things that's helped him, because if you look at the list of quarterbacks, remember they had like the transfer portal, window where they got Rudock, then they had Wilton Spate. Remember he was like 6'5", typical John O'Corn. And then Shea Patterson came in, tried to get a little more athletic. He was, all the rage coming for the SEC. And I think that was the start of an attempt to get a more athletic quarterback. But I think even when you looked at the evaluation of McNamara versus J.J. McCarthy, I think McCarthy's running skills jumped out to you more than McNamara. So maybe that's helped Harbaugh to say, look, we don't want the old school 6'5", 240-pound, slow pocket passer. We want to have a quarterback who's a dual threat. And maybe that's what's allowed him to get a quarterback like this. Because I do think it is becoming a prerequisite to be a quarterback, especially at the NFL level, but I think in college even more so, to run RPOs, to move out of the pocket, to make plays when things break down. I mean, look at Caleb Williams and Drake May. It's probably going to go 1-2 next year. Those are athletic quarterbacks. So I think Harbaugh, if I think it's intentional that he wants a quarterback to fall in line with that model, that mode of play.
I fundamentally agree with the idea that he's a good, quarterback coach. But, so we go Andrew Luck at Stanford, Colin Kaepernick at the NFL. But I will say that seeing J.J. McCarthy take a leap from 2022 to 2023 would be encouraging, because you just went through that run. Jake Rudock, John O'Korn, Shea Patterson, like not guys who started their careers at Michigan. And we haven't seen until J.J. McCarthy a true start at Michigan, finish your career at Michigan, multi-year starter. When Jaden Davis is committing to the Wolverines, he wants to be signing up to be a multi-year starter, develop, and eventually go to the NFL. And that's not something that Jim Harbaugh has produced yet at Michigan. It's been a lot of these guys that are transfers, quick fix, Shea Patterson for 2 years, John O'Korn here and there. We haven't really had the Jim Harbaugh recruited him, developed him, and turned him into a first-round pick. It's just not something that's happened in Ann Arbor yet under his tenure.
So if you look at the history of Jaden Davis's ranking, right, you asked about the progression. So he was the number 1 rated player all the way back 15 months ago for this class. He's a guy that we've known about for a long time. He was good early. So it is very possible that other guys, as they win the puberty lottery, right, and this thing, everybody kind of matures at different rates, right? And I don't really care if you're good early. I just care how good are you when you get to college and how good are you as you get through college. Then he went to, sort of that 8, 9, 7 range. Just that's not like a grade drop on the guy. The guy's grade is actually increased throughout the process, because we don't want to go throw a 98 on a guy, 3 years before he graduates. Started him out kind of as a 93. Now he's in that 98 range. Like that, I think that we're confident in that because of how high his floor is. Right, he's a guy that is very polished. The tools are solid. And to Tom's point about being surprised that they would pick a guy with that body type, I don't disagree based on the historical comps that Harbaugh typically seems to prefer. However, I think part of it is market scarcity of the traditional body types within the region that Michigan's recruiting this year. Now, you might say, hey, Jaden Davis is from South Carolina and he now plays in North Carolina. That's not really in their region either. And I agree with that, but at least they were able to identify him early and go out of region. Like the other dudes, Julian saying, Bama went out to California to get him. He certainly doesn't have elite physical tools, right? Just a very productive guy. CJ Carr obviously has solid tools. Lagway down in Texas, really elite physical tools. Noland down in Georgia is committing this weekend, big time tools. Croman Hoke, who's committed to Florida State, big time tools. Lagway's committed to Florida, by the way. I don't want to get the hashtag bias accusations. So, and it looks like somebody probably just missed a putt. Was that Tiger or Rom?
That was Rom.
Okay.
On two. No. I'm dialed. Okay.
All right. So I'm carrying the first. I'm doing the first 15 minutes of this show like super locked in. So you guys watch these putts now. Look, I just think Michigan probably surveyed the landscape. Hey, there's not somebody local that we really want. Maybe the Carr thing. Okay, he wants to go to Notre Dame. That's fine. Who can we go get nationally? They've worked this relationship for a long time. So I think part of it is not necessarily preference, but preference to have at least somebody good who we can establish that relationship with over the long term.